So if you've watched any of my videos, you'll notice that I post exclusively solo piano content. And while that's cool, for a long time I've wanted to improve the quality of the videos I'm making, and an idea that I've had for a while is to maybe try to learn how to play another instrument. And while the guitar is great, the piano is already a melodic instrument, and I already have access to that higher frequency range. The drums, although I would really like to play the drums one day, I just don't have the space for the drums, and that kind of leaves the bass guitar. With a bass track, potentially I can improve the bottom end of my recordings and just give what I'm already making, another layer of harmonic depth, another layer of quality. So once I kind of settled in on the bass guitar, one thing that I noticed was that the internet is full of promotions for paid online courses, like really for all instruments, for drums, for piano, for guitar, but also for bass guitar. And I thought, well, rather than kind of screwing around on YouTube trying to teach myself scales here and there, or a random song, maybe it just makes more sense. It's just a better use of my time overall to just buy access to one of these online courses, follow the teacher, follow the person who knows what they're doing, and learn the instrument in the order that they prescribe. So I went and bought access to an online course, and I got a bass guitar and some equipment, and I think I'm going to document the process of me learning the instrument and try to answer the question, is it possible to learn the bass guitar through the use of a paid online course? Okay, as far as the bass guitar is concerned, it's a Fender American Professional 2 jazz bass, and the color is, I believe it's Sunburst. The reason I got the jazz bass, one, was just availability. Two, it sounds really good. And then three, the neck really fits my hand well. I like the precision bass. I liked the way that it sounded, but the way that it played, it just, the neck, it feels like a little baseball bat almost. And I feel like the Fender jazz bass just fit my hand a lot better. As far as the amp that I'm using, it's just my dad's old Fender Blues Jr. And I know you're not supposed to use guitar amps for bass playing, but that's what I'm doing. And I just have it turned down really low so it doesn't damage the speaker. But it's a temporary solution, and it's all I can really do. So as far as the pedal, I actually really like this. It's a VT bass DI preamp pedal. So normally when the signal comes out of the bass guitar, it's weak, and a preamp pedal will boost that signal. But what this pedal also does is it allows you to change the tone and add, things like distortion. So the online course that I chose to buy is called BassBuzz, taught by a guy named Josh Fosgreen. And I'm not referring to his free YouTube videos that he has. He's got a lot of them, and they're pretty good, but specifically I'm referring to the course that's behind a paywall on his website. As far as how the course is taught, it uses a module-based video learning system where there are a series of modules that the course is broken down into, and within each one of those modules, there's generally some concept or some idea that Josh introduces through a series of video lessons, and then following those video lessons, there are a series of play-along lessons where you get some tablature and some sheet music and some backing tracks, along with some instruction by him that sort of helps you play through whatever song or scale or whatever rhythmic section that he's teaching at that time. One of the things I really like is that the lessons are typically no longer than about 10 minutes. The play-along lessons are usually about 2 to 3 minutes, but it doesn't inundate you with a bunch of 20, 30, 40, 50-minute long lessons, hour-long lessons right off the bat, or really at all. I think it's a good way to introduce concepts in a concise way so that you're not just given way too much information too fast. As far as the cost of the course is concerned, I paid $197, and for some people that's a lot of money, and I understand that, but typically in comparison to the cost of a good instrument, to gear, to an amp, a speaker cabinet, all of that stuff, $197 for over 30 hours of lessons isn't that much money. Also, if you've ever taken in-person music lessons, $197 is about 1 month of lessons. I think I paid $48 for a 45-minute piano lesson once a week, and that was maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that. One of the things that I like about the business model is that it allows you to buy the whole course outright in one $197 lump sum payment, rather than going the Adobe business model where they force you to get on this monthly payment plan that goes on in perpetuity. I don't like that. I think that's, I just don't like that business model. So I'm glad that I could just pay it outright and have lifetime access. So I'm not a total beginner when it comes to the bass guitar. I have played guitar some in the past. I took a few guitar lessons, but I just was like, yeah, my time's probably better spent playing the piano. But I do know some things about the bass. Like I know that the open strings are E, A, D, G. Yeah, I think that's right. And then I know that it has, I think this one has 20 frets. I know like I can play like some major, actually, no, I know some of the positions on the fretboard. Like I know this is F, that note, because it's E and then one above E is F. This is like carryover stuff from the piano. So if that's F, this would be G, this would be A, this would be B, and then that would be C. So I think that's like the lowest C on the whole bass guitar. What else? I know like, these are like volume and tone control knobs. I know that. I know these are the pickups. I know basic stuff, but I can place. Another thing. I know you're supposed to use 2 fingers to pluck the strings. Kind of like you're walking like this. So I know I've heard from friends of mine who are in bands that the bass plucking technique is really important. Like how you pluck it has a big influence on what the tone is like. Whereas with the guitar, like the pick matters, but I feel like I didn't hear that there was as much emphasis on tone coming from like how you pluck, but that could be wrong. I don't know. I'm just sort of repeating what I heard. Another thing, God, I know I can play like a major scale. I know. Like that. I know that's one way to play the major scale. I know there's like different scale patterns. So if I started on G, that would be a G major scale. If I started here, it would have been an F major scale, A major scale, B, C. And then if this is the D string, then this would have been a C major scale. So that's basically, a couple other things I know. I do know you're supposed to like rest your thumb on the pickup, I guess, when you're playing you're either supposed to have it up here like on the guard or on the pickup when you're playing the low E string. And then when you're playing like the A, like that, you're supposed to have the thumb resting on the E string so it mutes it so that they don't ring out in the recording mix. So the same thing with A, where you can rest your thumb on the A string when you're playing the open D. And I think the G, I don't think it's common to like put your thumb on the D string to play the open G, because then it's harder to mute the E because of just like the way your hand is. So, but with resting your thumb on the A string, then like at least when I look at my thumb, it like presses up against the E string. So So yeah, I guess, I don't know, I can play like some stuff for you guys and you can just kind of gauge kind of like what my relative skill level is, but I've never taken like bass lessons and I've never really spent any serious amount of time trying to learn how to play it outside of what I already know from the guitar. So I know how to play, Feel Good Inc. by the Gorillaz, so I'll do that. Is that right? Yeah. See, nah, I messed that up. It was... And then it goes... It's a pretty cool bass line. I like that, the way it slides into the E on the 12th fret and then... like that. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so I messed it up a little bit, but you get the idea. Okay, that's pretty good. So I know that. I know like Seven Nation Army, I think. So I don't know if you're, I guess Seven Nation Army if you only played on the E string, right? I think, right? Yeah. And then somebody also told me before, like, you're supposed to put your thumb so it kind of rests in the middle of the neck of the bass guitar rather than wrapping your thumb around to like mute the low E string like people do with guitar. Like apparently that's like bad bass technique, but I've seen people do it, but I've been told you're really supposed to keep your thumb like right in the middle of the neck, kind of like that. But, I'm trying to think, what else can I play? What else? Oh, 12-bar blues. I do know that 12-bar blues is one, just, you know, from like piano music theory, is 1-4-5. I know that's a 1-4-5 chord progression, so like that. So like, whoops, nah, maybe I don't know 12-bar blues. Hold on. Actually, let me start on the A on the E string because I know it's tuned in fourths, right? So like that's A and that's also A. So if I go from here to here, I go up a fourth, and then that would be the fifth. So play like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I think that's it, yeah. So I guess that would be a 1-4-5 blues progression in the key of A. So, yeah, God, what else? I think that's like all I really formally know about the bass. So I guess hopefully I'll learn some more, but I just kind of wanted to be upfront with everybody about what I actually know, like where I'm starting from. And you keep in mind, I understand a lot of music theory just from my piano background. I already know how to read sheet music, and I do pretty much know how to read tablature. Tabs don't really apply to piano, but I used them when I played guitar, and you know, it's even more simple with the bass since you just have 4 strings, but that's definitely giving me a leg up. So I just want to warn people, if you have no musical experience at all, you might not learn as fast as me. I think just because I have that musical theory head start, and I just have, you know, I've got a, you know, I have, you know, some formal music education. So I've kind of, you know, I guess don't feel bad if my progress maybe doesn't represent your progress, but I think it'll be fun. I just finished modules 1 through 3 of the BassBuzz course, and the takeaway that I get from it is that it's very basic stuff, but it's also very necessary stuff. For me, having a really strong background in piano, like having been fortunate enough to be, you know, formally trained, a lot of it was a review. He talked about whole notes, half notes, quarter notes. He talked about the notes of the 12 notes of the of Western music. That's all really important for somebody who doesn't have a musical background. It's definitely essential. It's something that you just have to get out of the way early. For me, it was a review, and now I don't think it was a bad thing. I mean, it's good to go over that again, but for me, like, I already had a pretty solid foundation in that. But the thing, really, it was two things that I thought were really helpful. The first was, the first was plucking technique. And the way he taught it was, if you pluck a string, I'll just pluck like an open E. You're supposed to pluck it, ideally thumb on the pickup and pluck it with your fingers going straight back. Some people kind of do it so that their index finger, like that, will hit their thumb. And that's important because the way I was plucking it before I started this course, I was just like noodling around on the guitar. I was plucking up into the air to where the string is like coming back and slapping against the fretboard and the pickup. And it's good that he got that basic technique out of the way first, because it kind of prevented me from maybe solidifying a bad habit. So I'm really thankful for that. The other thing that I can tell, I had heard about it, but I didn't know how important it was until I went back and listened to some of the stuff that I was playing, just, through my audio interface, and that's string muting. So string muting is, for people who don't know, it's necessary to kind of lay your fingers across the strings and just, rest your finger on the string so that you don't get what are called sympathetic vibrations. That's when, and I don't know if you can hear this. You may be able to, I'm not sure. But I'll play an E, and then I'll mute the D string and the G string, and I'll let you listen to see if you can hear the A string ring out. As the E string moves, it causes the air to move, and then that air causes the A string to move too. I think that's how it works. I'm not sure. But I'll play it and you guys can listen. Can you hear that? Hear that A string ringing out? Remember, I never plucked the A, but it's vibrating all on its own. Do it one more time. Hear that? So for a studio musician, you have to be able to mute strings properly, otherwise they'll just ring out in recordings. And I had heard recording engineers and producers say that they recorded like metal bassists or whomever, and they had to put pieces of felt underneath the string and the pickup in that area just so the strings wouldn't ring out in the recording, because like the bass player, maybe it was even the guitar player, couldn't mute strings properly and they just couldn't get that ringing out of the mix. So if you ever want to get decent quality recordings of yourself playing, you've really got to hone in your ability to mute strings. And that's something that I realized, wow, that's really, really important. So I got to give Josh like props for bringing that up early in the course, because now that I listen to my recordings, like I said, I can see why it would just be a nightmare to be recording anything and just hear those strings ringing out. And I'm sure it's like that through a loud amp or through like a PA system at a gig. What else? Oh, he had us play, he had us do a song by Led Zeppelin. I think it was Good Times, Bad Times, a song by Deep Purple, and then Sweet Home Alabama by Leonard Skinner. And I think those are just good confidence building songs. So it kind of keeps you motivated. It keeps you going. It kind of shows you, hey, you're making progress. But, I don't have any negative things to say about modules 1 through 3. I think it's really basic but important stuff. And I think I really benefited just from a technique perspective when it came to string muting and string plucking. So I just wanted to show y'all this little fret wrap that I got for the bass guitar. And the whole point of this thing is just to act as a way of preventing some of the sympathetic vibrations that you get on open strings. Like I was talking about earlier, if you pluck one string, even if you're not fretting or doing anything to the other strings, they'll ring along with that other string, and that muddies up your recording mix and just sucks. So I've got this thing, and the more you put it down on the strings, the more it mutes those sympathetic vibrations. I've seen people using these. They're like $10. I'll link it down in the description, but that's basically the whole idea. But I just thought it would be a good idea to get one, and if it improves the quality of my recordings, awesome. I just hope that it doesn't like instill bad muting habits where, I don't learn how to mute as well with my right and left hands, and I just kind of rely on this thing, but we'll see. Okay, so I just finished module 4 of the BassBuzz Beginner to Badass course, and it focused on teaching you to play on multiple strings on the bass guitar, not just the E string. So being able to play with your, putting your right hand and your left hand together so that you can play on the E, the A, the D, and the G string, which sounds like straightforward. It's obviously like a foundational skill, but it's definitely difficult when you're trying to cross from the E string with your left hand, or your left hand and your right hand, both plucking and fretting. It starts to become a lot to think about, but I still was able to get through the module in about a day. The only thing that I'd say is different is that he threw a pretty difficult bass line at me at the very last lesson of the module, and it's the bass line from Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. And I think the reason why I did this is, A, it's there to challenge you, to really kind of push you beyond your limits, because to play it at full speed is pretty difficult, even though I've been practicing it for a few days. But also that it forces you to incorporate everything that you've learned in that module, and previous modules, but the ability to play on multiple strings, both pluck on the D string and the A string and fret on the D string and the A string with your left hand. So I'll play it for you guys. I'll do my best, but I'll probably have to play it a little slower, and then I'll speed it up, but you can tell me what you guys think. So yeah, it's a little bit slower. He didn't teach the that part, but he did teach the that sort of main riff on the second and fourth frets of the A and D string, and the fingering that he was teaching was to play the fourth fret of the D string with the pinky, and then go to the fourth fret of the A string with your ring finger. So you kind of go, and then play the rest of the riff. He was teaching it with the ring finger. I've watched other people play it on YouTube, and a lot of other people will play with index and with the index and the pinky finger, but he was teaching to play with the index and the ring finger. So, and it's just difficult to do kind of as a beginner because my hand is not used to stretching like that, and I think more advanced bass players have kind of trained their hand to be able to stretch a little easier, but that's kind of a tough stretch for me. I'm kind of struggling with that one. So I'll play it a couple more times, and I know you guys can tell me what you think, but I'm kind of proud of myself. I practiced it for about 2 days, and I've been just working with a metronome, and I think it's helped a lot, but I still can't quite play it at full speed, but I think it's pretty cool. Made a mistake there, but you guys get the idea. It definitely gives your hand a workout. It gives my wrist a workout, you know, trying to like, you know, open up my hand like as much as I can on the neck of the bass. But I don't know, I'm having fun with it. I think it's cool that he threw that challenge in there, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. This is my little wall setup that I have for my bass guitar. So I went on Amazon and I ordered this little wall hanger, which is way more of a pain to mount than you'd believe, because wood paneled walls are just not amenable to be drilled into because there's no drywall. So just keep that in mind. But I got it up there. It's not going to fall off. At least I don't think so. And it's great because it saves me a bunch of space. I have a little studio apartment, and I just don't really have space for a floor stand. So yeah, these wall hangers are great, and I just like the way that the bass is sitting right now. I have it, the way that I leave it on the wall is I leave it plugged in. So you can see the plug coming out. It goes behind my keyboard. It goes through a horrible cable management system, and then into my pedal, and then into the little Ibanez Cube practice amp, which is actually pretty nice. I think my brother had this thing when he started playing bass, and he like promptly quit a few weeks later, and I got it now, and the thing actually is just great for a little apartment, so I don't have to ruin my dad's Fender Blues Jr. I've got a nice little dedicated practice amp. But the point is, it's a really convenient little system where I can just take the bass off the wall, I can flip on the amp, and I can start playing within 5 seconds. And I think there was a YouTuber, his name was Rhett Shull, and he said something along the lines of, a big impediment to practicing is not being able to get your guitar out fast enough. So if it was like in a case, I'd have to take it out of the case and then plug it in and then do all that, and it would be like 30 seconds or a minute or so until I could start playing. And that just wouldn't be very fun in the long term. It's just kind of a friction point, and I like this system better because, you know, I got a nice little amp I can play out of. I got a cool pedal, and it's just really, really quick and convenient, and it doesn't take up a lot of space in my house, and it just works. I just finished modules 5, 6, 7, and 8 of the BassBuzz course, and module 5 dealt with, what was it? Why am I blanking on this? Reading music and reading rhythm, which is like easy for me because I have all those skills from piano. Module 6 dealt with memorizing the notes on the E string and the A string, which, you know, that's important. But really, like, the meat of these modules, I think, is the introduction of the major scale and the minor scale, and also like improvising with those scales in a song that's like in a minor key or a major key. So I've been practicing them. I'm probably gonna like make mistakes while I try to play them, because like I played them perfectly when I wasn't recording, but I'll try to play them, and y'all can be the judges of whether or not I have a good grasp of the major and minor scales. All right, so that was the A major scale, the G major scale, and the B major scale, and then I'll do the minor scales. So G minor, and then A minor, right? All right, wait, did I do that right? Yeah, and then B minor. And the thing I notice is, like, I have to actually look at the fretboard. Like, I see famous bassists, and they're just sort of like, they got their eyes closed, and they're playing whatever it is that they're playing. I'm like, yeah, nah. I guess they can just feel the fretboard, and they can kind of feel the frets, and they've done it so many times that they don't have to actually look at, look at where their fingers are. But, I'm not like that. Even with piano, like, I can't really can't like close my eyes. Like I can't do like the Ray Charles and just know exactly where I am, like know exactly how far notes are. Like I'm definitely, I don't know if I'm like more of a, I don't know if I'm like more of a visually oriented person, but you know, I kind of have to be like looking at what I'm doing, even if I like have all the music memorized. But the thing I liked about these modules is that when they introduced the improvisation section, all Josh did was he said, listen, just pick notes of the major scale and the minor scale. He told you if the song was a major key or a minor key. He's like, you can just play whatever you want. And it's good because it's a confidence boosting exercise. And my philosophy with learning is like, it's extremely important to build confidence. I mean, throughout the whole process, but especially like early on, now that we're, you know, up to halfway through the course. And, I think he just did a good job of just, you know, choosing relatively easygoing songs, showing people, hey, just play whatever notes as long as they're in the scale, you know, as long as they're any of these, if it's a major key, you know, it'll sound reasonably okay. And the more that you do it, the more that, you know, you'll find notes that actually work out. So, you know, you can just fiddle around and, you know, you're improvising, and improvising's it's something that I would consider an advanced skill. And the fact that he introduces it early in the course, I think it's another thing to show people, hey, like this is an advanced skill, but you can do it. And as a result, I think it does a good job of keeping people going, showing them that they're making progress, showing them that they have the potential to be advanced musicians. And that's just, from like a psychological perspective, that's just a really great confidence boost, and it's just really motivating. All right, one more thing. So I forgot to mention it earlier, but what I'm trying to work on, I'm just trying to be cognizant of this, is the flying fingers. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier in the video, but one of the things that new people seem to have an issue with is with bass, I think with guitar too, is your fingers kind of go all over the place. Like, you know, your pinky will be like way out here. And that's not good because it's just not an efficient use of movement. So one of the things I've been trying to do I think practicing the major scales and the minor scales helps with this, is just focusing on trying to keep, you know, trying to keep those fingers as close to the fretboard as possible and not have my pinky way off, you know, and talk simultaneously while I'm playing. That one's like even harder, but I think I'm doing an okay job. You know, I don't know what y'all are seeing because, you know, I kind of have a different perspective, but, you know, my pinky and, you know, my ring finger, they're sort of moving a little further out than I'd like. But, you know, I just kind of play the scales over again. I'll play them with a metronome. Whoops. You know, I'll play them with a metronome. I'll play them just like at a slow tempo, and I'll just try to keep my fingers close to, you know, very close to the strings, and only fret, you know, with as much pressure as I absolutely need to. It's definitely harder to do, you know, down lower. Like if I play a G major scale, these frets are just further apart than if you get, you know, you get way up here. But I think it's a good exercise. You kind of have to, you know, you got to shift your hand a little bit. Like, you know, you notice how my left hand is, I'm not able to like keep my ring finger down on that, my middle finger down on that C, and then put my pinky down on the D right there. I have to actually shift a little bit like that. See how my left hand shifts around like that? That is a little bit easier to do higher up. Like if I play I guess I could play this E major scale here. Whoops. Like I don't have to shift my hand around it. You know, there's just less area between, there's less space between each individual fret. And that's just, it's just something to work on. It's something I'm trying to just keep it in mind. And because it is, the better it's the same with piano, like the better I can get my technique earlier on, I think the easier just everything else will be. So I'm just gonna keep practicing these scales. I'm not perfect at them, but I think I'm doing okay. I just finished modules 10 through 12, and they were very song focused modules, which for me was a lot of fun. Exercises are cool and everything, but modules 10 through 12 really took the concepts of roots, thirds, fifths, intervals, and octaves and combined them into bass line parts that you'd learn for a ton of popular songs. The ones that I liked the most that I'll play for you here in a second were Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes, if I can remember all these. It was 5 of them. It was, Seven Nation Army by White Stripes. I liked Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash. Dazed and Confused by Led Zeppelin. Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then the last one, which was definitely the hardest for me, was Pretty Pink Ribbon by Cake, which I've always thought Cake is a really good band. And why am I blanking on the instructor's name? Oh, Josh. Josh said he was a really big fan of Cake, and I can see why now that I listen to their songs, and I'm like, oh, the bass player is like really kills it in all of like Cake songs. So I can see why Josh really likes that band. But Pretty Pink Ribbon was definitely like technically the hardest. But when I actually go back and listen to the recordings of what I played, it looks like the song, like counterintuitively, that I struggled the most with was actually Dazed and Confused by Led Zeppelin. And the reason why, it has to do with string muting. It's a slow song. You're not playing a lot of notes, but because you're not playing a lot of notes, when you listen to the recording, you can hear some of the strings ringing out. And it's either they're ringing out and I'm not muting them properly, which I've heard, I can see it's a skill that you really have to develop over a long time to mute strings. It's either that or it's harmonics. And you're hearing those harmonics ring out when I'm playing, just by the nature of how I'm touching the strings when I'm muting them. So I think that's something I got to keep in mind moving forward. But I had a lot of fun playing the bass parts to these popular songs, and I'll play the clips here in a second, and you guys can judge for yourselves how well I'm doing. I just wanted to show y'all this cool little combo amp that I just picked up. It is an Ampeg B2, and I don't know if you know what Ampeg is, but they're a manufacturer of, they're like a legacy manufacturer of bass-specific amps, and they make the Ampeg SVT, which is a very famous like all-tube bass amp, and they made the Ampeg Flip Top, which is like this vintage 15-watt amp that's been in a ton of old recordings, and you know there's still a few of them around. They're not being made anymore, but they fetch a pretty penny on the used market for sure. This amp though, this is a 250-watt 15-inch combo amp, and it, for the most part, it's pretty good. I was playing with a drummer that I know at her house, and I just, the little Ibanez Cube amp that I have just is not cutting it anymore. So I picked this thing up for $260 off of Facebook Marketplace, and I would say it's definitely the right amount of power for like a garage jam sort of situation, but I would definitely recommend that if you want to jam with a drummer, you need at least 200 watts of power on the low end, like ideally 300 watts. Otherwise, like the drummer's just going to drown you out and you can't produce enough volume with your bass. But otherwise, it sounds okay. It doesn't sound incredible. I've played through other speaker cabinets at guitar shops that sounded better than this, but it sounds like it's definitely passable. I mean, it's a $260 amp. I don't know what these things went for when they were new, but I'm sure they were a good amount more than that. But I would say overall, like, I'm fairly happy with it. The one big complaint I would say is that it's just, it's really, really heavy. It's like, I haven't put it on a scale or anything, but I'd say like maybe 75 pounds. But at some point I'll graduate to a better amp. But for right now, I'll just keep playing this thing. And when, I have the money for something better, I'll get it. But here in a second, I'll show you guys some clips of what it sounds like mic'd up. But otherwise, I've just been playing most of my recording so far through my audio interface. So you actually haven't heard what this amp sounds like. But yeah, in the future, definitely getting something lighter than this. I knew it was coming. Module 13 introduces slap bass. And I gotta be honest, I'm not feeling slap bass. Not a fan of slap bass. A lot of people like slap bass. People talk about bass and they want you to do some slap bass line, or they talk about doing some slap bass line like Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, but I'm not feeling it. And this is why I'm not feeling it. It's really hard to do. For me, it's not super satisfying because it's really easy to make a mistake. And by that, I mean, when you go to slap the bass with your thumb, like you go like this. See, I'm doing it right there, but when I first started, it's easy to like hit the string and like leave your thumb on it like that. And when you do that, it mutes the string. So you have to like bounce your thumb off the string like your thumb is bouncing on a trampoline or a slack line or whatever you want to call it. But that's kind of how I feel about slap bass. That being said, like, I mean, I understand why people think it's cool, but when you first start doing it, you know, I know I'm complaining, but the skin right on the edge of your index finger where you go to pop, like that skin right there starts to wear off, and like you get a red spot that kind of starts to blister up after a while. So you kind of, I mean, it's kind of inevitable. If you really like play a lot of slap bass, I mean, it's going to happen. But if you're trying to learn slap bass, like just keep that in mind. And maybe once you start to feel your finger getting a little bit raw, just stop and, you know, do something else. Come back to it the next day. But I think eventually it'll callous over, but I think it's something just to keep in mind. Another thing about slap bass is fit for a certain type of music. It's fit for, you know, very funk-oriented music, and I'm really into like the Cliff Burton Metallica style of playing bass guitar, and slap has basically no place in that type of music, and I'm kind of relieved by that. And I was listening to this interview by Thundercat. I don't know if you guys know who Thundercat is, but he's like a famous bass player. He's like a solo artist, and he's he was a session musician, and he said he showed up to a session like early in his career, and one of the guys he was playing with was like took him to the side, like laced him up and said, "Whatever you do, bro, it's like do not slap that bass." And Thundercat was like, "Okay, cool." He's like, "You just need to keep that in mind. If you want to get fired, you know, start slapping the bass." And for me, that was kind of validating. But I'll go ahead and play y'all like what I learned. So what Josh was teaching at the end of Module 13, after introducing the concepts of, you know, just slapping with your thumb, plucking with your index finger like that, is he introduced the song Love Roller Coaster by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I don't know who it was. I know the Red Hot Chili Peppers covered it. I'm like blanking on the band that did it originally. God, what was the name? It's not the Village People. It's not that. It's something else. But yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers did it, and I'll do my best to do sort of a slap pluck version of Love Roller Coaster, at least like close to the tempo that they did it at. So y'all can judge me for how well I'm doing with it, but I mean, I think that was pretty good. I missed the pluck there a little bit. And sometimes, like, again, like you gotta hit the string with your thumb just right. You gotta slap it. Otherwise, like, you can miss it kind of easily, like I'm doing there. Or you just don't hit it right, and it doesn't ring out like you want it to. And I think I did that like once or twice. I made that mistake like once or twice, but I mean, it's definitely one of those. I think slap is one of those milestone modules. So Josh did a pretty good job of teaching it, but he did, and this is like something I do commend him for because it keeps things realistic. He did say, like, you guys have to understand, like, it's going to take you literally years to get really good at slap bass. And that's once you start doing slap bass and you get real frustrated early on, like I did, you can understand immediately why it takes so long to do those crazy Red Hot Chili Peppers, crazy plucking and slapping bass lines like Flea does, and I totally get it. So I'm not gonna say like I'm gonna sit here and spend all this time slapping bass, because it's not something I'm like super crazy about, if I'm just gonna be totally honest. But, you know, I'll probably practice it here and there. If I want to learn a song that incorporates slap bass, then I'll probably spend more time on it. But for me, I was just glad to get through Module 13 and just get through the slapping exercises. I just wanted to show you guys the new speaker cabinet that I bought. It is an orange OBC 115, and what that means is that it is a cabinet that houses just a single 15-inch speaker. And the reason I got this one is because it was the only higher end speaker cabinet that I could actually find at local stores and play. I got it from this really good local shop in Raleigh called Harry's Guitars. I'll link them down below. But they ended up actually giving me a good deal on this because the Tolex, and I don't know if you can see it, right down there was actually ripped in shipping. It was just a small tear. I pointed it out to them, and they're like, "Man, I'm sorry about that. If you still want it, we can just give you a $100 discount." And they were super cool about it, and I was like, absolutely. I was able to play this exact speaker through and what was it, a GK 400, it was like an older GK 400 watt bass head, and it sounded like phenomenal. It wasn't just like the kind of bass that sounds good, but it was like the bass you could feel in your chest. And I don't know if it has to do with this port that's on the side, which looks cool. I mean, I'm sure it looks cool, but I'm sure that this port that they have on the left end is it has some acoustic function to it, but it sounded great. You could feel the bass in your chest. It just felt really thick, and I was just like, this one's sold. I'll take this one home for sure. So I could have gotten something like a Mesa Boogie cabinet, and those are really highly regarded, but I just didn't want to spend that much money on something I couldn't actually play my instrument through. So hopefully when the funds allow, I can get get a good amp head and have a good setup. But until then, I'm still playing the Ampeg B2, and I'm happy with that. But once I sell the B2 and get a better head for this thing, I'll be really, really happy with this setup, because I really like the way that this speaker sounds, and I can't wait to record some audio of me playing through this thing. Okay, I finished the course. Modules 14 through 16 are done. He focused on some different stuff than what was in the earlier sections of the course. Josh only taught us actually one song that came at the end of Module 14, and that was I Feel Good by James Brown. You know that song? I mean, cool song. I liked it. But after Module 14, he was really focusing on, I think, more practical skills that you're actually going to use out there in the real world if you actually end up playing with a band, especially if you end up playing with a drummer, because like the bassist and the drummer were the rhythm section. So it makes sense for him to put that emphasis on being able to understand rhythm, being able to lock in with a drummer. He also talked about, how to create a chord progression, figure out a chord progression, how to work your way into a chord progression that's already there. Some simple like solo techniques that you could play in between chord changes. He also talked about playing with a pick, which I actually liked. I thought was like super easy. I'm surprised he introduced it like this late in the course, but just some I learned some Chris Novoselic, like the bassist from Nirvana. I learned some of his bass lines like from Come As You Are. Like I'm sure like everybody's heard that like a million times, but I didn't think it was that hard. I thought playing with a pick kind of came naturally just because I had experience with it when I was playing guitar. So again, like that disclaimer, like I didn't come into this course a total beginner. Like I had some foundational skills from piano, a little bit from guitar. I'd played guitar with a pick, obviously. I knew sheet music. I had already transcribed but I think for people who aren't in that position, like these last 3 modules are really, really important, because like I said before, if you do play with a drummer, and I think everybody who's a bass player should try to find a drummer or just try to find a band. It doesn't matter how good people are, but just try to find a band and play some stuff. And I think focusing on those rhythm techniques is probably the most important thing I think that you could take away from the final part of the course. He also talked about stuff like advanced playing techniques, like where people, like, I don't know if you've seen, some people like will play with their thumb, like they'll double thumb like that. And I mean, I've never used it. I don't know how useful that's going to be like in my playing career. He also talked about like hammer-ons, like those things, like, or like hammer-ons and pull-offs, like that. Like that's sort of those hammer-ons, pull-offs are sort of I think it's fine to put them in the advanced category. Like most beginner songs aren't going to have those integrated into them. But I learned this, or at least I'm like kind of still working on it, but the song Are You In by Incubus, that has like a hammer-on pull-off like right at the end, or like right at the beginning of the song. So, but again, like the reason I say it's at least I'm emphasizing why I'm glad that he spent a lot of time teaching you how to play with a drummer, like lock in with the kick drum, is because I actually have a friend who plays drums, and we've gotten together and we've jammed, and I've played some loops on guitar and then played bass over those loops with her drumming, and I've actually really been enjoying it. I don't know where it's going to go, but I think from like a musicianship standpoint, it's very good, and I think it's very necessary. So hopefully before like I wrap this video up, hopefully I can fit in some clips of us playing, because I'm kind of, my confidence is up there. I'm glad that I was able to take the skills and actually put them to use playing with the drummer. So since I'm done with the whole course, one of the incentives that I set up for myself is to put new strings on the bass guitar. And the strings that I have on here are just the strings that it came with when I bought it like over 6 months ago. So I have like a solid 6 months of playing on these. And I don't know if you guys are going to be able to tell, but from the research that I did, like the older and older the strings get, the more like dead they sound. And I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but my guess is that because I've played with them for so long, these are just dead strings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change them with these round wound strings right here. And I don't know if y'all can see that, but these are just strings for a 4-string bass. But the difference is that the strings that are on here are wrapped in like a round wire. So you can like, they make this sound this kind of raspy sound when you rub your fingers over them. Well, these are different in that these kind of have a warmer sound because they don't make that rasp when you put your, run your fingers up and down it, but they're just flat. So they feel different. They sound different. People say you get more of a thumpy, maybe funky tone, as opposed to these. You definitely get like a brighter, raspier tone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these strings off and cut them off with my little, these pair of wire cutters that I got from, I think I got them from Home Depot, and put these bad boys on. So, all right, here we go. I think first thing I got to do, I got to loosen the tension on these strings. So you don't want to like snip them and then have them like break. And the thing that I was told was, if you're going to take the strings off, just do them one at a time. So take, I don't know, I guess I'm going to start with, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I'm going to start with the big one, the low E string, and then replace it and just do it one by one and see how it goes.
A few moments later.
Okay, flat wounds are on. I got them stretched out. I know that when you put new strings on, they kind of go out of tune, but hopefully they kind of all, they all go out of tune like equally. So, even if they're all pitched down the same amount, it won't sound too out of tune, but got it tuned up. I got them stretched out. They'll keep going flat like over the next day or so probably. But if it's anything like changing strings on a guitar, but I mean, they definitely feel totally different. I mean, they're slick. Like when you run, you run your hands down them, they feel totally, totally different. So I don't know, maybe I'll like them. I'm not hearing that buzzing. I'm not hearing that buzzing anymore, and that's good. It doesn't feel like the action's too high. Doesn't feel like the action's high. It feels like cool strings. I don't know. My fingers aren't getting greasy, so there was no like packaging grease on them, but I don't know. They feel kind of cool. I'm interested to actually listen like in the recording after I'm done with this to see how these compare to when the round wounds were on, but I don't know. I'm kind of digging them. All right. I got my hair down for this one. Oh, does that look good? Hopefully it does. I'm totally done with the BassBuzz course, and to answer the question, oh, by the way, this is my new house that I'm living in, and this is the music room, and this is the drum set that the drummer who plays in the band that I now play bass in, this is her drum set that she uses. Well, it's the drum set I bought for her because she doesn't have to bring her drum set from home. But I think Can I Learn to Play Drums via an online course is going to be a long way off, but maybe like one of these days. But yeah, I think to answer the question, did I learn how to play bass from an online course? I really want to lean towards yes. Like playing bass is not, or playing any instrument is something that exists on a spectrum. It's not either you know it or you don't. It's not binary. So I want to lean towards yes. Ultimately, I will let you guys be the judges of that at the very end of the video. I'll show you some clips of me playing. You can decide for yourselves. And I guess I will just say that the reason why I thought the course worked is because for me, it took me through the material in a progressive way that built my confidence up, got my wheels spinning, it gave me momentum, it made me believe in myself, and that the module-based kind of block structure progressive learning method that it used, that really works very well for me. That may not work for you, like your mileage varies, but for me, that really did work. I think it was $200 incredibly well spent. I think for the 3 months that it typically is going to take for somebody to work through that course, it's $200 is not a lot to pay to kind of fast track your way towards, an intermediate sort of level. Because if you didn't have that course, you could have pieced all that information together yourself on YouTube or just wherever, but it would have taken you 3-4 times as long. It wouldn't have been anywhere near as efficient. So I think I'm very glad. It was the best $200 I ever spent. I wish there was more stuff on improvisation. I've played some songs here and there that involve ghost notes, if you guys know what those are. There was nothing on ghost notes in the course, but really those are only the two kind of gripes that I have. It does go over improvisation, but it's a really small part of the course. So yeah, I guess I'll cut to some clips of me playing some songs, and I'll probably post some bass covers and maybe some multi-instrument covers on my channel later in the future. But I guess by the end of this video, you guys can listen to me play and tell whether or not I actually was able to learn how to play bass through BassBuzz.